Secret Diary. I'm your host, Arianna Ayala, and welcome to Secret Diary. This is a podcast dedicated to discussing my experiences, our experiences of the modern work environment across various sectors. So join me as I dive into an insightful analysis and a first-hand account of industry dynamics where I'll share my goal to empower you to question conventional norms and help you participate in shaping inclusive and progressive workplace cultures. So today's episode's a little special because if you haven't noticed the past two episodes, I definitely have been reading off of a script, like a hardcore script. I'm really new to recording myself and uploading it to the internet in a capacity where I'm sharing information that I don't want to be too condensed or not detailed enough or nuanced enough so that you're kind of left asking questions about a topic or kind of like the reason behind why I'm saying the things that I'm saying. And I often felt without a script, I was going to kind of struggle to convey my message in a way that felt effective and informational just as much as it felt personal and educational. However, I am starting to realize that there's a lot of things that just don't come up when I'm writing a script, and I wanted to try to use this episode topic a little bit more free-formed and less scripted. And I also really hate when I'm looking at the camera, I'm going through and I'm editing, I just can see myself not looking at you guys or not looking at the video camera. I'm just like stuck reading, which, you know, is okay if you're tuning in through like Spotify or just listening to audio, but I know that when I watch a video, or even to have an element of video for the podcast, I want it to be because, you know, you want to see me having a conversation. You want to see me kind of like thinking and talking in the moment just as much as I've prepped beforehand. So for today's episode, it's Dear Secret Diary, do I have what it takes to be a billionaire? And a lot of the points I want to cover today is mostly like the moral dilemma of billionaires and kind of the things that come into play when we talk to each other about our career ambitions and our goals and our dream jobs and what our dream lives look like, much of which only feel obtainable to us through monetary gain and through climbing the corporate ladder. And I say that really loosely because I feel oftentimes when I'm speaking from a place of corporate leadership or the way authority can run in like a large scale business, I think it's very fair to say that you don't need to be a billionaire or working for a big corporation to understand the moral dilemma of exploiting workers, of being exploited for your work, regardless of the kind of sector or industry that you work in. This is something that has created a system as a result of capitalism and corporate greed that trickles down into even smaller working environments and more nuanced than just, you know, these huge corporates heads and, you know, the CEO and your boss, whatever. It doesn't stop just at huge businesses. You can be exploited simply by just working in an environment where you're not being respected and treated with dignity. So I definitely want to kind of keep that in the foreground of this discussion because I'm mainly going to be focusing on the ways in which we've shifted this idea of what it is to be successful, what it is to be a good worker, and how that has affected our quality of life and how it continues to plague us when it comes to, you know, people not being given a livable wage, a fair chance per se at, well, for us in America, the American dream. So let's dig in. Again, the moral dilemmas of billionaires. You have money and greed and generational wealth, for me, at the expense of billions, if not hundreds and millions of other workers. So I've get into some heated debates, both with peers, superiors, strangers, on the ethics of being rich and wealthy. And I'm not talking about Nancy, whose generational wealth stretches to her parents who were able to go to school and become doctors or whatever. And now she's, you know, medium middle class income in comparison to the people who are eating a huge pie of all of our labor force, our work. And I'm talking about the 1%. I'm talking about believing this American dream and them selling this lie of being a good worker and being a good wage slave, because this is what makes people like Nancy come to bat for billionaires and greedy CEOs and corporate heads when we talk about the ethics of being rich and wealthy in a society where not everybody is being treated fairly and ethically in order to sustain most people's wealth. So that's definitely a big thing I've noticed being an organizer and showing up in spaces where working class folk are not the medium income in those areas. I worked for a long time in Williamsburg, and when we were doing actions and we were flyering and I was trying to let the people know that where they're getting their morning cup of joe was exploiting the workers and, you know, making it hard for us to make ends meet at the end of the month. I got a lot of people who, well, can afford to live in one of the wealthier parts of Brooklyn. So a lot of this was mainly a concern with, are they not going to give me my coffee today? Am I not going to be drinking my favorite latte or cappuccino today? It was never actually about what we were out there tabling for or flyering for, with the exception, of course, of the people who do care and the people who are aware. There is a big pocket of the world right now who likes to pretend that they are the exception to the rule, that the work that they put in to keep us fueling actually matters in the kind of capacity where they can ignore service workers and streamline themselves through the doors of a picketing and striking establishment to get their cup of joe. So, you know, class traders, we like to call them, not to pick at anyone or make you feel bad, but you should not be crossing picket lines. You should not be ignoring workers who are trying to explain to you why you also probably need to be questioning your workplace, if not supporting those who don't have such an amazing environment to thrive in, where they can, you know, afford to drink their $9 lattes every single day. And I say this coming from a place of being on the side of, you know, the picketing individual, the individual asking people to care about exploitation of workers. I see a lot since I've been on the campaign that I'm on now. Since the beginning, like, a lot of it was verbiage around us being entitled, us being overly concerned with something that the rest of America has suddenly, like, worked their heads around, why this is okay and why this should continue to happen. I think a lot of it just comes from the fact that we've been indoctrinated and we've been made to believe in this moral dilemma that as long as I'm just doing my best to survive, as long as I'm doing my job, you know, I try my best, I don't like to shop online, I don't like, you know, I'm self-aware to an extent. But when you're, as a result of this alienation of workers and a working class, being made to think that you can just ignore the plights of your peers, of your community, of the individuals in which who make you the things that you can purchase, you're no better. You are no better. And I think it's something that a lot of the times, that's why people avoid speaking to the people who are outside, who the people who are aware, because they don't like to be confronted with this moral dilemma. And, I'm sure it's very one and few the kind of people who would sit here and get through my intro where I share that we're discussing, modern work environments, where we're diving into these kind of heavier topics and kind of forcing you to think outside of a conventional norm. Thank you if you step past this. And I want you to know that if you're somebody who's struggling with feeling like the weight of like a labor movement or the weight of activism and social justice on your shoulders, that I'm not saying this to put you in a box. I'm not saying this to shame you. I'm saying this to make you look at it from a different perspective. And a lot of the times, people will kind of harp on the side of corporate greed and, careerism being the dream life, right? Having an amazing job that you love, that pays you well and treats you amazing, should not be this unobtainable goal that's only obtainable to you by stepping on others so that you can move forward, so that you can push ahead. I think that it's the twisted reality of the normalization of toxic work environments. I have seen it being somebody who works like a customer facing role in a wealthier area, talking to people about their jobs, talking to people about the things they experience at work and their struggles. I had a regular who would come in every weekend tired, being like, I'm on 16 hours, I'm worked here X amount of years and I'm like so exhausted, how to work my way up from here. And it's just like, do you not see what is wrong with this picture, that you can obtain the money, the wealth, but your job is still sucking the living soul out of you? It doesn't end when you make more. It doesn't stop when you get that one raise, or you get like, I think it's a constant question that comes to mind is like, when will it be enough? And the way that work culture has been accepted nowadays, these corporate kind of superficial relationships, transactional relationships that really don't benefit you as much as they benefit your superiors. And if they do end up benefiting you, it's probably at the expense of one of your superiors. This is what I mean. We are being conditioned to accept less as more. There has to be a time where we all collectively can see that nothing is gonna get better by ignoring the people who are shoving it down your throats, by ignoring the people who are calling you to action. And I truly believe that people who work firsthand in service industries, people who work customer facing roles, really like get the short end of all of this, because we get to see the struggle and the weight fall on to the people we have to serve, and they treat you differently. I feel like since the wake of the pandemic, people's social relationships with service workers has plummeted. Sometimes you're the only person that person talks to in the entire day, and you have the power to completely shift their mood. And with that, there's a lot of having to navigate that kind of social circumstance when someone's being frustrated, when somebody is feeling the weight of the fact that, we have to work to live. We have to work to keep this world running, but we're not doing it for each other. We're doing it, to make money, to survive. We're doing it because I have, to make X date, and my work is not helping the world be a better place. I'm just making this for this billionaire to trade with that billionaire to make for this billion. Like, it's it's really sad and it's frustrating, and I get it. I totally see the way that work can affect you, because you'll feel like you're not doing anything productive. You feel like you're not kind of participating in a way that you want to participate in. And that's not to shame people who take these jobs. It's to shame the industry that fuels this kind of work. I feel like we live in a profit-based world right now, where before we used to invest in creativity and art and kind of what this is going to do for other people, where now it's just blatant consumerism. Let's make this product because everybody is coping through purchasing. Everybody is spending excess amounts of money to feel stable, to feel like they can still enjoy their lives in this like crippling economy where we're not adjusting wages to meet like living expenses, and the rise quality of living is plummeting because things are surging in prices. And you have people looking to candidates, looking to their government officials, and being disappointed and being super frustrated and upset because not much will change if not enough people are willing to hold others accountable to that change. And it starts by holding yourself accountable. It starts by asking yourself these hardlining questions about how you want to participate, how you want to acknowledge the struggles that everyone is dealing with. And I think it would be kind of selfish of me to come on here and clamor about this thing, everything wrong with, the just work in general right now, and just like the levels of unemployment I see, and turnover rates, and how companies are treating their workers, without honing in on the fact that you need a community to thrive. You need a strong network of people to feel supported, to lean on when times like this are tough. And due to this hustle culture that we live in, a lot of the times people are afraid to admit that this is too much, that it just doesn't make sense anymore. They don't want to look like the weakling for calling out that they're tired, that we're all tired. And I'm here to tell you that there are so many people who feel this way, this exact same way, and they're pushing for change, and they are organizing, and they are mobilizing, and they are trying to shift this conversation into something that is productive, building coalitions, building assemblies, creating an environment where we can push for radicalization of work environments, push for worker safety, push for, merit-based or just inflation-adjusted wages. There are things that can be established and can be worked through so that we, the people who create with our own labor, create the success, create the brand, create the business, can reap the rewards of what it is to build something productive in the eyes of society, in the eyes of a consumerism-based world. So that got kind of a little bit heavier, or a little bit more like broad world picture on this talking point of moral dilemmas of like, do you have what it takes to be a billionaire? And I hope people who are watching this, who are surrounded by people, or even just know some people in their lives that just seem very caught up in being successful monetarily. And it's not that, money is bad. It's not that having wealth is bad. It's what you do with your wealth, and what you choose to do with your money, and how you choose to acknowledge the privilege of being in a position where you don't have to worry about displacement, don't have to worry about paying your bills. There's just like so many different areas to touch on when it comes to this, but I think like the main point I want to bridge is that this is a reaction to a broken system. You are not the sole reason to blame for your consumerism or for finding a cope in purchasing things, in wanting to connect to the community, because now it's all being gate kept through a paywall. Most of the things that we used to do to enjoy are now we're being asked to give money. We're being asked to pay to enjoy our lives, and it's depressing, and it's kind of an icky feeling that I have to like cope with as well. We all do, you know, we're all kind of stuck in this limbo, and clearly there's a rise in this because, you know, it's becoming more evident as things increase in prices and wages fail to keep up with this demand, that we're just falling deeper and deeper into what is a recession. We've been in a recession, and like I don't know the last time I met somebody like who made a median income, who was making anything like sustainably easy to like come by through just being in a blue collar job, or like buy a house or make like big purchases that weren't like damn near a risk to just take. You know, there's a lot of things. There's a lot less room for risk, and there's a lot less room to grow and develop when you are struggling to think about like what's coming next, because if things keep moving up like this, I can't keep up. This is why I'm such a strong advocate for like co-ops or communities, or just things where we're trading I'm trading this skill so you can give me that for this, you know, kind of showing up for each other in ways that we can, because yeah, not everyone can just throw money at things and it'll just, you know, work. It's definitely a lot harder, and you have to be more resourceful, but in the end it makes us stronger, and it makes us more skilled with working with what we have and kind of developing those abilities, because the more we mobilize and the more we come together and we come into community and we build our assemblies and we build coalitions surrounding, protecting the working class and building it up and giving more equal opportunities to folk, it's at first, you know, a process, and we gotta start rehabilitating these ideas and really growing them and tapping in with one another. I think this isolation period that we're in, where people are talking about what's wrong, but they're not doing much about what's wrong, is really starting to shift and really starting to change. And we're seeing some headway, but it starts with acknowledging that to be a billionaire, to work for a big company, to climb a corporate ladder, you will need to step on people's toes. You will need to be unethical. You need to have some moral setbacks. And who knows? Maybe there's an exception here or there, but the plaintiff is it more likely than not. The billionaires, the 1%, the heaps of generational wealth were built off the backs of exploitation and wage theft and being a wage slave. So when you don't know any better, you don't have really the option to question. You are just going to be a good soldier. You're going to be a good worker, and you're going to look down on people who refuse to work as hard as you or hustle as hard as you, when the reality is we should not have to hustle to have our needs met, to be given housing, to have food on the table. People aren't lazy. People aren't X, Y, and Z. These people are struggling through a system that was built against them, built to fill the pockets of greedy people who have everything they need, who don't worry about where their next meal is coming from, but will gladly take it from you. And what a lovely thing to think about, and what a lovely position of power to be in. You know, I can't really think of any good reason to exploit people other than, you know, thinking that other people, that you yourself are more important than others, that you yourself deserve more so that somebody else can have less. But I digress. Most of this is just kind of thoughts that brew and come. These things come up in conversations with other organizers and just customers, friends, family, all the time. We are tired. We are exhausted. We want you to acknowledge the system is bad and not play into it. I know so many people who will sit there and to your face be like, wow, what you're doing is so brave, like being an organizer or speaking out about like injustices in the world, like you're so brave. We should not be like normalizing the idea that to speak out about something you need to be courageous and brave. I think it should just be generally understood that what is going on is not okay. And when you kind of glamorize people or idolize them for being aware of the issues and speaking out about them, you yourself are complacent because you're choosing to not adopt this quality, to opt yourself out, to be the exception to the rule. You're not. You're a human. I'm a human. Just about everybody in this world is a human who needs their basic needs for housing, food, shelter, you know? And it should not be radical to say that. It should not be some kind of like fire starter in the wake of an environment where we are all struggling, where we are all seeing the effects of this. So, yeah, I'm kind of off on my tangent. I need to eat breakfast and continue my day off because this is what you do in the midst of a worldly shift, in the midst of an election year. We still need to eat. We still need to keep going and address these problems, but understand that when you care enough to sit here and listen to somebody explain it to you, or when you care enough to take something like this and bring it to your peers, to your colleagues, especially the ones you see struggling, especially the ones you see being taken advantage of, just remember, you're not alone. And I feel you. I know so many other people who feel you. The people who watch and listen to Secret Diary feel you. And yeah, tune in next week. Maybe we'll be a little bit more upbeat and lighthearted. Maybe we'll just kind of be talking about how we cope. I don't know. I'm definitely open to suggestions. I'm continually trying to practice sitting down and recording more. I think not having to feel the pressure of a script has really helped me out because I can just kind of say what I'm thinking, brewing it along, but also it's a little bit less informational as much as it is opinionated and tangenty and ranty, which is okay sometimes, you know, but I definitely want to have more of a back and forth and dialogue between episodes. So I'm working on finally trying to get some guests on. I'm a little nervous because I don't have the most glamorous setup, but you know, I don't think it needs to be glamorous. I don't think it needs to be perfect. I just think it's worth the effort. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Arianna Ayala, and this was Secret Diary.